And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, today we're taking a look at For Crown and Kingdom. This is a game that utilizes the rondel. A rondel is where you basically have a circle. In fact, this game is a big circle where you'll be moving pieces around and around and around and around you go. However, where the pieces land depends on how the game works. This game is not, a lot of games utilize a rondel, but this game is the rondel. In fact, I can't think of any other game that was the entire game was a rondel except maybe Finca. Even that one had a slight addition to it. This one is all about this circle and special abilities. I'll show you. The board here is broken into different sections based on the number of players. If there's fewer than 4 players, some of these will be one section rather than 2. So in a 2-player game, there'd be 6 sections rather than 12. And players will be taking turns putting their different characters in the different sections. And then on a player's turn, the first thing they can do is they can pay a bribe where they can spend money to do an action. We'll come back and talk about that in a second. They then must pick one of their characters and move that character clockwise to equal to the number of characters that is in that region. So this guy, for example, would move 1. The next time I moved him, he would move 2 because there's 2 people here. If he was in this space, he would move 3, and so on and so forth. After you move them, you will use that character's special ability. There's 5 different characters in the game. Each person has the same 5. You have the Duke or Duchess. By the way, each character has a male or female side, so they're essentially the same. So if the Duke or Duchess lands in a region, and you also have the most of your color in that region, you'll put a control marker there. That control marker stays there, doesn't go away, and so each player can have a control marker. And in fact, when you get a control marker in every region, you win the game. The merchant, when they land somewhere, they are going to get 1 coin for each person in that region. When the thief lands somewhere, they will steal 3 coins from another player in that region. From each other player, sorry. The knight, when they land somewhere, that person's captured. They're put in front of you. They are no longer on the board. The knight can get rid of other people. And the scholar, when they land somewhere, you'll look at the text on that region, and that will happen. Here, 2 coins, gain 3 coins. All players lose 3. Here, add a control marker to this region. Here, all players lose 2. Activate any non-imprisoned knight. Return an imprisoned pawn to any region. Add one of these tokens to any region. So there's different things all over the board. Now, remember I mentioned those bribes? Those bribes are important because you can pay them to do 1. For example, you can pay 1 to move counterclockwise rather than clockwise. You can pay 2 to go counterclockwise rather than clockwise. You can pay 1 to move 1 less. So if I'm here, I could pay 1 and only move 1 spot instead of the 2 since there are 2 characters there. I can pay 3 to use one of my character's abilities right now. I can pay 4 that when I use my Duke this turn, even if I don't have a majority, I can still put a spot in that area. And finally, bail. If I have imprisoned characters and I want them back on the board, I can put them back on the board. If I have 1 missing, it costs me 3 coins to put them back. But if all 5 of your characters are off, it is 0 to put one of your characters back on. So you're never totally stuck. This will continue on. So you bribe if you want to, that's optional, but then you must move a character and you must use their special ability. First person to get a control marker in every region is the winner of the game. The basic concept for Crown and Kingdom is fine. The components are they're typically, they're stickers that you put on the pieces, and that part is not a big deal. Wooden pieces are fine. These control markers are pretty lame looking, and the board itself is very bland. The whole thing just has this very bland feel. And the cover of the box, which is, yay, people gathered around a table again. But whatever. The theme of the game, again, none of that really matters. It's about utilizing these people. So you're moving people around the board. Now, here's what I like. I like the bribe part of this game. I like that there's a currency of money, which means nothing really point-wise, but it lets you move someone backwards. It lets you move someone 1 less. It lets you utilize that Duke special ability, which is a big deal. Having a lot of money in this game is good. The game does have a finite amount of money, And if you ever get more than 4 coins or so, someone's likely going to steal it from you. I like the fact that you can take other people's pieces out. That's a pretty interesting idea, but because it's not so difficult for them to get those people back. This isn't like, oh, your stuff's captured, I'll never get it back. All right, I have no pieces on the board. No, you definitely can get pieces on the board. And so that ease of bringing people back in and capturing, it works, but it's not too killing. I especially like the scribe piece, where when he lands somewhere, he gets to use a special ability of that piece. Here's where the game falls down a little bit. The game is too long for what it is. You're moving around in a circle, so I move, do special ability, move, do special ability, move, do special ability. You do it a lot. It takes a while to get those control markers in every single spot. At first you'll be like, ooh, this isn't so bad. But getting them in those final 4 or 5 spots can take a while. And this game can really drag out on those final turns. With 2 players, not so bad. With a 4-player game, it's like, oh, please, somebody win. And that's not because the game is bad. It's just because the game, for what that is, moving around, you'd much prefer to finish in a reasonable length of time. What is the time on the box here says 45 minutes. But with 4 players, you're easily looking at an hour. And that's because if you start pulling ahead, people can easily stop you. They can capture your pieces. They can steal money from you. They can do things to slow you down. If I capture your Duke, which is your most important piece, or your Writer, probably your second most important piece, because there's a spot on the board that lets you put out control markers, and if your Writer can get to that. The Merchant and your Thief and your Knight, or I might take out your Knight to stop you from taking out my pieces. Yeah, so there's some back and forth in that regards, but it can lengthen the game up. More importantly, though, I think the game itself is okay. It's an interesting, and I had fun doing it, but I kept thinking I wanted there to be kind of this hook. It wasn't that the game was smooth and cool. It's more like the game is like, okay, I move around the rundown. Now what do I get to do? No, that was what you did. Oh, okay. And it just doesn't have that satisfying feeling. Like, ooh, I got some money. I mean, sometimes it's satisfying, I get some money. Well, now I'm on the future turn, you can spend it to maybe get some more money. I don't know. It seems like it's a level below where I want to be. I'm not saying that the game's too simple, because simple games can be really entertaining and fun, but it seems to be missing a spark. This game's going to be compared a lot to Finca, and I'm not sure Finca's in print right now. If it is, Finca definitely beats this one out, not only because of how gorgeous the Finca looks, but just because once you got the stuff, you then took it and were able to turn it into points, and it was a much more straightforward way. This here, we're constantly looking at these sheets, and I'm really glad that they put male and female sides on the pieces. That's great. However, on your reference sheet, they show you one of those 2 faces, sometimes the male, sometimes the female, and actually I believe on each, yes. So on the red player, it's all female, and the yellow player, it's all male. That's not a big deal, except that you're like, that is the Duke, right? Let me flip it over. Oh, yes, now it matches. So if you're going to play this game, I would recommend that you play with the matching sides, whatever your reference sheet is. The game looks bland. It's not that exciting. That makes a package that I don't know how many people are going to want to play. I think some people will enjoy this, and the 2-player game is certainly much faster. And I don't mind that, but it also, because there's less interactiveness, it loses a little bit less pizzazz. There's not that cool. There's 5 guys in this spot. I'm going to move 5, or I'm going to lay my merchant there and get 5 coins. That sort of coolness only happens in a 4-player game. So I give this game not bad, could have been better, not exciting. And that's kind of a hazy middle ground for me to recommend the game these days. So I think there are some people who will enjoy this game for what it is. I just wish that what it is was more. Dice Tower Judgment, a little long for what it should be. It's merely decent.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door!